Oh, thank you guys for being here and for being online to our beautiful people on the live stream. And thank you, Adorama and Sigma. This is so sick. I learned a really cool story about Sigma today, actually. So they're new, they just rebranded, and now they're like Sigma, Aizu, what's the last word, Jake? Aizu Japan, thank you, because that's where they're from. And like family brand, you know? But sorry, this is where Jake would be a lot better at this part. But all of the minerals for the Sigma glass are from the volcano that's in Aizu. And so, like Seth was talking about when he went to Tokyo and like saw like the grandpa in one of the like the sections of the factory, and then like the dad, and then like the son, and they had like photos together hanging out, which I did not know about Sigma, and I've been working with the guys for a long time. So that was so sick. Good job. Great lenses. But yeah, hi, I'm Jillian, for those of you who don't know me. Photography is the only life I've ever known, and I didn't go to college. I just kind of kept, let's go. We talked about that earlier. I just kind of kept at it. So it started in like high school, just photographing my friends, which turned into senior photos and weddings and families. I moved to LA, and it was more fashion. I did like Paris Fashion Week, went all of that like ego route. And I was like, okay, but like this doesn't pay anything. So then I was like, okay, let's go commercial. And now we're here. And that's how I met Giselle. That's how we are doing this demo today. And I'm so sick to show you some stuff I've learned along the way. I'm gonna get rid of this little screen. So you'll be able to see, don't judge that photo, but this is my screen that you'll see the beautiful photos come in on, and it's gonna be great. So this is Giselle. Giselle's insane. She's so cool. She's incredible. She is my
You can clap for Giselle.
Clap for Giselle. She's done a few of the demos, but we've worked together on like beauty shoots too. So obviously I asked her to be here today for this one. So right now we kind of just have a pretty basic beauty light happening. Usually you have this beauty dish come in at the top, and then you can have like a reflector that's here just to bump up a little bit of the shadows, because obviously it's creating some hard light. So we're just gonna get settled in here really quick. Do not judge these photos yet. They'll be good by the end of this. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So we're just gonna dial it in. And I think a lot of what I really wanted to talk about today is like, what I didn't realize was me building my foundation in lighting, which is back when like I didn't have any money, I didn't have any gear. And so I was working at a photo studio, like just being there during their like hourly rentals. And then I'd be able to use the gear in the studio like other times that I would want. So that's how I just kind of like started experimenting with gear. And it was a lot of like, oh, what happens if I kind of just turn this a little bit this way? Like right now, she's actually a little bit too far left of the light. So I'm like, oh, actually, I should probably turn this that way. That's on me. That's on me. And then we're gonna get somewhere here. And then this is when I take the image in Capture One, which is the software that we're using if you aren't familiar. And I kind of just put like a little recipe on it. So I usually will actually turn down the contrast, flatten it a little bit, but then go back and overcompensate with this Luma curve for whatever reason. Make it make sense. It doesn't. Self-taught. Let's go. Okay. And then we bump the saturation up, because so much of my work is insanely saturated. That's Giselle right there. That was her. It was so cute. So now we're here, and I'll just throw like a quick prop on just to get us in this realm. So this is already, honestly, enough for a lot of clients, which is great. It takes like no time or effort to impress them. Those are great clients to have. But for work that I'm a little bit more proud of, I'll usually throw in a second light that a lot of more traditional like headshots or even old beauty lighting, they'll throw a strip box like one of these guys, probably bigger. This one's a small one, but probably something like that on this backlight, just to make it a more like even shape and, you know, like make it super like nicely diffused. I don't do that. So I usually just come here. I'm gonna bounce it a little bit like behind her, but then forward, so it's not hitting too much of like the side of her face. And we're gonna see, is that on? It is on. So right now it's at 5, which is a lot because our main key light's at 6. Can you see that? 6.3. That's 6.3. So I want this guy to just be like supplemental. So I'm gonna start it at like 3.5. We're just gonna see what happens.
It's going to override that with the remote set to.
What's the remote set?
Well, you're on TTL, so.
Oh, don't do that to me.
I don't know what group that is.
It's B.
Yeah.
No, it's C. That one's C. Okay. Thank you.
What do you want to do, 3 point?
Yeah. Still didn't.
Really quick. We don't run out of batteries.
Nice. Okay, so let's see what happens. Now we're here and you're like, ooh, that's fun, add some shape. It's also really hot on like the right side of her face. So I'm gonna throw a grid on this guy, which is, this is a 10, so there's 5, 10, and 20. Hello. And each one is like a tighter grid, so you'll get like a more diffused specular kind of. Also, the inside of this one's white. Normally I do shoot with the silver ones, but the white one's different because it decreases the specular. Okay, cool. So we're gonna pop this guy in and do that shot again. And so it just kind of decreases it a little bit. It does also affect how bright the light is overall. So you might want to like come back up with the power to compensate if you want to. I personally like it. I think it's cute. So I'm gonna leave it. And yeah, this is again a place where a lot of clients could be like, great, that's all we've been looking for. But you can keep going. So this is a moment where like when I've been in my studio alone, you just have a few hours to just shoot whatever you want. You'd be like, okay, well, like what happens if you take the same light? I just put lotion on my hands, so this is hard. Oh, give me a second. Yeah, can you get it? Yeah, thank you. Can you just point it up? Thanks. Just point it straight up. And at this point, Seth's probably like, yeah, okay, good idea. And I'm also going to now turn the power up because I'm shooting it at the ceiling, at the super white ceiling. So it's at 3.6. I'm gonna go for like a 6. And let's just see what that does. Okay, so now we have these 3 images. So the left is with just the beauty dish. The middle is the beauty dish and the kicker light is what they're kind of called when it goes a little bit from behind. And then the right image is going to be with a little bit of a fill from above, which mainly right now you're just seeing because it's reflecting off of her shirt and it's creating a little bit of that like chin fill. So then what we can do is be like, okay, well, what happens if we move it over here? And you know, sometimes you move stuff and sometimes it looks really bad. This one hopefully won't, but we'll find out. So now between these last two, just moving this light from there to the front, it now is spreading the light, not just here, but now that is over here. So it's falling onto more of the front of her face. It's lighting a bunch, like a lot more from the front, you know what I'm saying? So I really like that look. I think it's really fun. Obviously it depends, because if she has like a bright pink shirt on or something, it could like flood too much into her skin. You could be like not into that. But it's just cool. And then from here, we can also, yeah.
What are you shooting with camera lens?
Thank you. Yes, sorry. Okay, settings, gear, lens. So I'm on a Canon R5, which is what I use for work. It's not my favorite lens to shoot with for myself, but for commercial photography, it's kind of just like what you call it, the Chevy of cameras. Like it's easy to get gear for if you need it for a shoot. If you travel, it's going to be easy to find another gear shop. So yeah, so I'm on the Canon R5 and right now I have the Sigma 24-70. I am doing an EF to RF adapter right now, just because a lot of their newer lenses are not available for the R mount, but they are available for Sony and L mount. Thanks, Jake. But yeah, so right now what I'm actually gonna do is switch over to a different lens that's also a Sigma Art Series lens. Those lenses are super crispy, which is how I initially got into it's not, I know this is sponsored by Sigma, but I promise everything I'm saying is so genuine. It's how I started working with them because I just loved their Art Series lenses for like since I was like in high school. Like I remember getting the 50 millimeter like 1.4. That was my first like Sigma lens, and it like changed the way I viewed my photos. It was so stunning. So that kind of kept me on the Art Series stuff for a while. And then eventually they like noticed my work and we started working together. And now when they're like, oh, can we send you a lens? I'm like, yes, but it has to be an Art Series. So that's how we got this beautiful 14 to 24, also art. And it's fisheye. You're probably, yeah, I see your face back there. You're like, what are you talking about? Listen. Sigma did the same thing when I was like, I want that lens. They were like, for what? You're like, you do product like in studio, why are you going fisheye? This was right before you started seeing all the fisheye product stuff come up in your Instagram feed. So let me tell you, I was ahead of the curve. But it's so fun. It's so much more engaging, like especially with like a product, because obviously Giselle is incredible and engaging on her own. But if this is just like a white box here instead, it's just kind of gonna look stale. But the second that you give this perspective and like kind of give some life into a, sorry, I can't talk and do this at the same time apparently, into what otherwise would be like just a pretty static commercial image, it immediately just gets more fun, which is a lot of the work I do. It's very fun. Whoa, okay, and we're stuck. We're so stuck. I'm excited for the future when wireless tethering is in a better place. Maybe one day, maybe not. It's getting there. This was a really dumb way to do that, but whatever. Okay. Anyway. Okay, so now we're gonna be somewhere like here, which is super moody right now because of the lighting situation we have, but it's also fun. I'm gonna do one more that's kind of like the one that we've done before. And now we're here. And this compared to that is so fun. And I'll show you a bit more on how to light this right image, because now we have like harsh shadows, you know, that we will fix. But so yeah, so this is the 14 and 24. And also just for reference, okay, that's just going there. Sorry. So for reference, we're also shooting at ISO 400, 1/160th of a second, and we're at f9. I usually stay between like f9 to f11 because I usually like everything pretty crispy. We were talking on the podcast that we did earlier today, which if you haven't listened, you definitely should. It was a really fun conversation that we had. It's on the normal Adorama channel?
Adorama TV.
Adorama TV YouTube channel. It was recorded. It was cool. Always putting the link on the YouTube. Let's go. Yep. Sorry. Thanks. But we talked a lot about, wait, what did we talk about? What was I saying?
Asking about the rain cloud on your screen.
Oh, that's Genevieve. That is my desktop pet for emotional support. I can turn her off if you want me to. No, she's so cute. She's sleeping and it's raining on her. It's insane. But when I do like photo shoots with kids, they see that and they love it, which is not to get into like the how I do my business side of things, but like these like toy catalogs that we do, when the kids have that reaction to you as a person and not just your work, and then that echoes into the clients and everything. And like it's one of the ways that I kind of like bring this same like curious intentionality into other areas of the job, because it's not just the photo you take, it's your presence on set, it's the way you're interacting with people, it's the desktop pet that you have on your screen. So okay, so now we're here, this super cutie fun angle that we've shot so many times before. But it's so fresh. And like if that's too much, you can like zoom out and get a little bit less or more distortion based on what your client's wanting. Because some commercial work, that's not a great image, Shannon. Okay. Some commercial work will be more okay with a distorted angle than some other people will. But that's why like this being a zoom lens is really helpful, because you can do it in a more digestible way for people who maybe aren't looking for that social content, but still do want it to feel really engaging, you know? So now we're here. So one other really cool thing that I like to do with the light a lot is, so I mentioned people will put like a reflector here. Do you have a reflector?
I got bored.
Cool.
Over white.
Let's do white. Thanks. Okay. So just to start fixing that darkness underneath her a little bit. Do you mind just holding that? No, I'm not going to be using it. Okay, so now we are here. And it's the difference between this left side and now the right side. You're getting a little bit more highlight under her eyes and like under her eyebrow for sure too. But then what we could just do instead is bring in a whole other light to really create a nice highlight that starts hitting the eyes a bit more, and like especially the lip gloss that she has on. Oh my goodness, sorry. He puts these on pins and I don't normally, but we're working through it. Look at this, look at us. What in the world? Okay. You what? You like pins?
Yeah, visual articulation, it's safer. Doesn't
Yeah.
slow off.
That's fair. Okay, so now we're here. And not to get super into like the why behind what I do, but I think it's really important to like give yourself the space and the time to just play, because so much of the things I've learned from like happy little accidents now are the foundation of my lighting. And so people will look at my website and they'll be like, wow, you have such like a distinct style. They'll be like, oh, like everything like looks the same. I can tell if you shot it or not. And for a while I was like, I don't know what you're talking about because I can't see it because I'm just so in it. But after a while it started to click that it was just a lot of these same concepts that I learned just from being in the studio, playing, shooting lights off the ceiling, off of a white wall, off of like some random card. And I now use that in my commercial work in ways where they're like, whoa, like you know your lighting so well. And I'm like, thank you. It was kind of an accident. But it wasn't. Like there's so much intentionality behind everything that you do, you know? Now we're here. Okay. So for this guy, I am going to put the strip box on. This is a 3-foot strip box. And my brain is thinking that I want it to hit a little bit like in front of her and not super below her chin. Thank you. That's fine. Oh, wait, can you do this again? I just put lotion on and not again, but this morning. Can you angle this more up? Thank you.
Oh, there's lotion all.
Okay.
Wow.
She lotioned. I'm sorry. That's on me. Another thing you learned apparently 10 years in, don't put lotion on before a shoot. You're good. Okay. So for now, I'm going to leave this beauty dish where it is. I'm going to turn off this overhead just for you guys to see without it for a second, because I think it can be really easy to, like when I started even, I was like, okay, I want to be a studio photographer. I need 10 lights. I need all the soft boxes, and we're going to set it up like every YouTube videos I've ever seen. But that's how you get like decision fatigue. You don't actually know what you're doing with any of them. So I had to like reel myself back in and be like, okay, start with one light and like a reflector and just use that for as much as you can and see what happens. And then when you need a second light, when you start seeing, oh, I wish there was a highlight here, that's when then you can add in more, but you don't want to get ahead of yourself. So now we're here. So our only two lights on right now are this beauty dish and this guy. And this also has a grid on it, which is directing the light. So it's a little bit harder, but it also isn't going to just like fully blast her with like a window light. That one's B, you said? Yeah. Okay, it's at 6.3. I'm just going to turn it down because I do still want this to be our key. So I want that to be the most powerful. This guy I'm going to have at like a 3 to start. See what happens. Nice. Okay, so now we're here. And I keep saying that, I'm sorry. Is that annoying? Sorry. So the difference between with and without it is you start getting a crazy nice highlight, definitely in the eyes, but also on the lips, which has been really fun anytime there's like a really glossy lip or glossy makeup look. It can also be really helpful for product because if she is holding something, then it'll light up the bottom of it really nicely. Because obviously for product, you don't want maybe the same beauty lighting. You want to be able to make it look like you could grab it out of the photo. And we're just going to do like 2 more. The one thing with this fisheye lens is that the angles can be dramatically different really quickly. So maybe if she starts looking up, it starts looking too flat. So you just have to be aware of that as you're shooting, and especially if it's like on an actual paid shoot, you need to be able to have a setup that is versatile enough to where you're getting the shots you need very quickly, especially if they're throwing different products, whatever. But you also make sure to work with like a model that knows where the light's at, or to be able to like say to you like, okay, like don't chin up as much because it's just going to blow out your face. So just guiding them with the lighting setup that you're working with, if that makes sense. Also, does anyone have any questions right now? Because one of these that I did, I was like telling people how to put a camera on a tripod, and then I found out halfway through that everyone was like way overqualified. So I felt really bad. So if you do have any questions, just raise your hand. Yeah. Oh yeah, and I'll repeat the questions.
Mimics, are you catching the mimics particular face expression?
Like are we catching the specific expressions like as we're shooting? Yeah, for sure. I think with commercial photography, you usually have time to redo them, but that's also like a relationship that you build with the model is that timing. Because obviously we'll have like a shooting cadence and like I'll be shooting like every like second or so and it'll be like a beat to it. And usually you have music going behind you, so you're all kind of like moving to the same beat. So that's something that she'll recognize and kind of like pose with each shot too. And then you usually stop for a minute and the client will go back and like review what you've done, see if they've liked one of the photos or if they want to keep going before like moving on to the next shot. Did you have a question in the back? Okay. For the first time using a camera, what would I recommend? For like this kind of stuff? I don't know a lot of other cameras. I started on a Canon T3i and then I went to a 5D Mark II. I loved the 5D series. I don't know a lot of the new ones out right now. But do you have any recs for that stuff?
I would talk to someone in the store for that. Yeah, it's like a light.
It's very convenient. You're in a really good place for that question. Yeah.
You can see that you use the signal. How do you like use the signal?
You see, okay, you have a Canon R5. You saw that I used. Yeah.
It seems pretty cool. So I just want your opinion about the signal.
Yeah, I think the Sigma lens is definitely a lot better than the Canon 50, just the quality of the glass is better. It's from a volcano. Did you know that? But no, I definitely saw a huge difference when I first bought, when I first bought the Sigma lens. I was shooting with the Canon 50, like 1.4 forever. And then I switched and upgraded to like the Sigma 50. And it was,
When I tested it out, I love the look of it.
yeah,
Yeah, I tested it out. The new one, the 14.
you tested it out. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause they don't have everything for the R series, but they have one that you.
Yeah.
14.
Yeah, they're sick. Anytime I think you can shoot with like a Sigma Art Series glass, I always go for it. Jake with Sigma in the back there can definitely talk you through a lot of the more current options too.
Yeah.
But it's sick. Of course. Hey.
Do you have any advice for dealing with sort of like product portraits with glare? Like if you have a really reflective product?
Do we have any advice for reflective products with glare, especially with portraits? Yeah, we do. Okay, what can we put in? This guy? Let's throw this guy in. Can I do this? Can I put this product in the shot for a second? Okay, just go sideways with it. Okay. All right, so this is a super reflective little lip gloss guy. So I guess when you're talking about glare, are you talking about like the highlight or what are you thinking?
So I was on a shoot recently and we were just running into while the like model's moving just intuitively, sometimes the label was catching a lot of glare or over the logo. And that's something that can be dealt with like in post-production, but for the client, they're really worried about it on set.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of deal with that?
So when you have a product on set that you're catching a lot of glare, like in the like the logo on it. I'm saying this for the live stream, so they didn't hear you. But it was
Yeah. For future rep, we're live and they can't hear you, so let's keep the questions tight. All right, guys. So like,
I'm gonna reiterate it though, because I love you. Yeah. So when you have a product with glare, the best you can kind of do in the moment, if you're moving around a lot, is to just try to hone in to one pose you can stay in where the product doesn't look as crazy. Ideally, you can just fix it in post, but if a client's not able to see that on set, you do kind of just need to like corral it a little bit. Otherwise, what you can do is move a light if you feel like you want to. Like maybe this light could just scooch a little bit to the left, the bottom light could just scooch over to the left, so that you're getting less of a highlight on this right side if like if the client really wants the product on that side and they love how it looks, but the light is just messing it up. That's, I think, a moment on set where I've definitely, I've done this in the past too, and it's not great, where I'm like, no, like the light is what it is, like just change where you want the product. But that's not what matters. What matters is your relationship to the client. The photo is going to be great, but ultimately it's a photo for them. They need to like it. So if you really kind of like try to go down with that ship, you might not get hired again. So like, not the vibe. So what you can do is like, say that product is here. Here, can you put it on your right side? Yeah, and we're gonna just show can we show the label? Is that fine? Okay, cool. Nice, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
It was backwards.
Okay, so let's say we took this photo. Obviously, yeah, the text looks terrible. But if they want that there, my job is now to move the light somewhere that's not in the way, which is hard with beauty lighting, especially when you have that main source that anytime you move it, it's going to change the whole image. But we're going to do our best. One thing you could also do is just to get a different angle on it and see, like, if you go up or down, if that changes. So like already here, we're kind of in the same space. I mean, if we were in the same pose and like same head pose, it would be relatively the same. But it was me moving. You what? Oh, you're fine. It looks great. It was me moving just like a little bit to kind of get it out of the way, or yeah, fixing your lighting and kind of moving that out of the way. If that makes sense. Thanks. What's up? This is a white beauty dish, but normally I do shoot with silver. I like the specular, it kind of adds, but there's a lot of reasons to use a white one too if you do want it to be a little bit more commercial. The silver gets like punchy really quickly, which I kind of like, but we're on white today. And there is also a grid on it too, which I can show you guys what it looks like without it. It's a 25-degree grid. Sorry if this blasts you in the face for a second. Wait, don't look. Thanks. So just for funsies, here's what the grid's doing. Yeah. So it's doing a whole lot. And especially like you see kind of how flat her face gets. The white beauty dish does that a bit. The silver would be a little bit more punched in. But yeah, that's the difference between those two. So now we are here. I'm going to put this back in really quick because that's crazy. Oh my goodness. Okie dokie. So now I think this is where previously I've kind of gotten, not stuck, but I'll come up with a few concepts I want to shoot and I'll shoot them and I'll be like, okay, like that's it. But you kind of have to get past that. So I went to this like art museum one time and this teacher was like, had like a school group in front of this huge painting, whatever. And she's like, okay, like, what do you notice? And they're like, oh, like it's like a girl in a white shirt and purple background. And she's like, okay, but like, what else do you notice? And they're like, oh, well, she has like silver jewelry on, or she has like a red lip. And then it was like, okay, but what else do you notice? Like she kept really digging into it, which was, I just was like mind blown. I was like, that's so smart because it gets you past your initial bias for everything, but it gets you out of your head and it kind of forces you to look at it again. And like, even once you think you've exhausted it, like you haven't. And then I was talking to this guy who is a professor at some art school. And I told him this story. He's like, yeah, girl, that's like year one of art school. And I was like, okay, and that's maybe why you go to college. But so now we've done these last few like variations and shots. Sorry, 1 second. Also, if you ever work with a Digitech, it's so great because they do this part for you. It's really nice. So these are just a few of, let's grab a different one. Maybe one of these. These are just like a few of the very different shots you can get just by kind of moving things a little bit. And we can keep going in this direction, but how are you guys feeling about that? Is there anything you want to see that you never want to see again? Me? That's a bad answer. Cool. Okay. So one thing we can also go towards now too is a more natural light approach, because this is very studio, it's very punchy, but sometimes a client wants it to look just lifestyle commercial. And you have to do it in studio, so now we're here. So for that, I would actually turn this beauty light into our like second or third light. So I'm gonna turn it down all the way to like a 3. Okay. I'm doing it from the remote because Seth is so responsible. Sorry.
It's not gonna change. What do you want? You know?
I know.
The old pro photos were that way.
The old pro photos were that way.
B2s were like that.
That tracks. Yeah, so we're also using the ProPhoto B30s, which are all battery powered, but you can also plug them in. And they're totally perfect for a studio, even a little bit bigger than this. You're totally good. On set, we're usually using like packs, like the Pro 11s, Pro 12s, and those are different. These are mono heads, if you're not familiar, where the light and the battery are in the same piece of equipment, whereas the packs are like one pack with a bunch of cords to different heads. So you're controlling everything either from the pack or from your camera. Okay, so we're turning down the number or letter A, which is this guy. And then I'm going to punch this guy up, and I'm going to raise it a little bit just because right now it's like spreading everywhere, and I have it at 6. No, it's not on. We're turning this guy back on. It's at 6. We're back on. And what I'm going to do is I want this overhead to just be super strong. And so we have the white ceiling here. If you don't have this, you can get like a scrim or create like a false ceiling, like with just like a white piece of fabric, even like a sheet. Just like put it up in like a square, and then you can have it just kind of like above your set. You can move that around and see what that does too. So this guy's at 6. I'm going to move it up in height just a little bit. This is a baby stand because we were using it over there before. But I'm going to put it at 7. Do that. Do you need to dump these ones too or no? Okay, cool. And then for a natural light look, you're probably not going to have that softbox from underneath really like lighting up from the bottom. That's just kind of look a bit funky. It's just going to look more studio for sure. So we're going to get rid of that. And I'm going to turn this light into that guy. So I'm going to mimic them, one on either side, so it's a really even like coverage on either side of her. This one's at 3. I'm going to turn it up to 6 from the remote. Sorry.
You're gonna wonder why it's not doing it.
I know. Okay, and we're going for a pin. Do you have another reflector? Like a reflector for the strobe?
I got a magnet.
Okay. So ideally, if you want these to give off the similar effect, you kind of want the same modifiers on them. So I'm going to take the grid off for this because it's just kind of dimming this light for no reason now that we're just shooting at the ceiling. And this one's just going to look a bit wider because it has a wider... No, that's fine. Because it has a wider modifier on it. So we're going to see what that looks like. Okay, so A, 3.2, B is going to 6 to match C, which is at 6. And now we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so now we're here, which is super dark. But this is the start to go in the right direction, which is that kind of like overhead sunlight look. So what I'm going to do is punch up our key, another stop. So it's at 3.2. We're going to go 4.2. And then B and C are overhead fills. We're just going to punch to 7 and see what happens. Okay, so now we are here. I'm going to take the grid off of the beauty dish with 2 hands. That's crazy. Ooh, she's sharp. Ooh, she's sharp. Okay. Okie dokie. So now that guy should be a little bit more flat, which does, again, go towards that natural light look. So we're getting brighter. From here, I could keep punching up power, which for the B30s, it's fine. It's going to obviously start like just killing the batteries, maybe a little bit too much. You can start kind of overcompensating with your settings. So maybe I could go up with the ISO. We do have some lights that are affecting our ISO right now, but we're shooting so fast, it's fine. Yeah. Do you think it's fine, these lights?
You just turn the strobes up, take a shot, and see if your ambient light's there.
We'll do it. We'll check our ambient light. So I'm going to go up to ISO 640, and I'm going to turn off the strobes for one just to see how much we can get away with the ISO. So we are getting a little bit of flood on that left side.
Sure.
That's okay. This is a moment where, like for a client shoot, if that's like a window or something, you'd want to close them. For this, I want you guys to be able to see me, so we're not going to do that. So we're gonna go back on with the strobes. And I still bumped up the ISO to 640 and we're stuck on the stand. Okay. Okay, so now we're here. With this more like soft light approach, one thing I'll also do in Capture One is to just bump the saturation even more. And this is something I've had Digitechs be really mad at me about. They're like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, watch me. Because if I don't do it on set, I do it in Photoshop later anyway. So like, we just do it. And then here too, another really cool thing in Capture One that you can do is the skin tone adjustment stuff. And they're now getting really good at like blemish removal for all of you that shoot a lot of like portrait stuff. So if you go here, skin tone, click like a middle range, like I'll go like right here on her forehead. And you can change like the uniformity and stuff and just like, it's so cool. Watch this. So if you can kind of see, it's changing all of her skin to be like more olivey, but the problem is it's catching the like red on her cheeks that are the blush and the lip too. So you can go over here, you can view the selected color range, you see what's happening. You can get rid of some of the red that it's selecting. And you can go back here and make maybe like the saturation more uniform. The lightness will get crazy, but if you want it just like a little bit cleaner, you can be here. Maybe like right there. Just because once I start bumping the saturation like crazy, it also affects her skin, obviously. And now we're here. It's definitely still pretty dark. So I'm going to bump the Beauty Dish back up. It's at 4.2. Let's see what 5 looks like. Now we're bright there. One thing I do that I shouldn't do, it's a bad habit, but I do overcompensate and Capture One with some stuff sometimes. As I think what my brain's doing in these moments is really just like slightly adjusting everything to get the exact look that I'm envisioning in my head, which in this case is like a pretty buttery finish, not super dark shadows, but not super dark or not super light highlights either. So I kind of want to be somewhere in this world. And that's like a pretty natural light beauty shoot. You can keep adjusting the highlights if the client thinks that it's like too bright on her forehead or if it's too dark under her like eyebrows. These are moments too where you can get it like as dialed in for yourself as you want, but then the client's gonna have a lot of opinions that you still have to be okay with because again, they're the one at the end of the day that's paying for the image, that's using the image. So that's just a moment where you need to realize what's important in that moment, which is the client, which is a crazy rant, and I'm so sorry. Okay. Any questions so far?
I just want to say that when you lift up the ISO 640, that was a great idea that you did.
That we left up the ISO, it was super
Yeah,
great.
you tried
Thank
to
you so
figure it out.
much.
Yeah,
I was.
bumping up the ISO, I think it would be better. And that was cool. Are you afraid that sometimes if you bump up the ISO too much, it'll get too pixelated?
Yeah, so if you bump up the ISO too much, it definitely can get too pixelated sometimes. Usually you don't start hitting that until about 1,000, I would say, from my experience, especially the R5. It's so good in natural light. But in a studio, ideally you don't run into that because you should be able to compensate in other ways.
I see without the grid, you say it's flat, but I think it's perfect.
You think it's perfect?
Yeah.
Without the grid, you think it's perfect?
Yeah.
Let's go. No, but that's to your point, like everyone's gonna have such a different idea of what they think looks good. So that's like, I think as photographers, like you're doing a lot of it alone. You're like in the studio alone, unless you're with Giselle. And you are in your head alone, and your idea of what looks good is entirely yours. And you can watch the different YouTube videos, you can get different advice from different people, but it doesn't really, you have to like train your eye And even then, other people have totally different opinions and experiences, which I think lends itself really to the like grace and empathy and charisma you have to have on set these days. I don't think that's super, I saw your snap, thank you. I don't think that's something that necessarily was a driving force in deciding who got hired 50 years ago, but today it totally does, because there's so much content getting shot all the time. In New York, you're working with so many people all the time, so many different people, which is the beauty of it. And I think if you can work that team in a way where everyone's best skills are being like highlighted and elevated, you're gonna get a better end product. So like if you stay in your head and you're like, no, like I think that grid needed to stay there, but you're saying you like it better without, like you're doing a disservice to the final shot by not taking in other perspectives, you know? And I think that goes, I mean, that's echoed into like the curiosity that I use with the lighting that you guys have just seen me like push stuff around for the last 45 minutes. But that same curiosity you have to bring to set, because a lot of people will think about things very differently than you will. And so like being a commercial photographer, your job is less about photography and more just like being a decision maker and like being able to create teams that work together really well, or like inspire them, or like being able to be there for them when they have an issue, because that's just the job. Sorry, that was a soapbox. Thanks. Yeah.
Comes to pacing on set.
When it comes to pacing on set?
Pacing.
Yeah.
Pacing the shoot. What is your best practice for checking in with your talent? Say, for example, we've been here 45 minutes and like things change, their energy might change, moisture might accumulate. Like, how do you space out breaks, essentially?
Yeah, spacing out breaks, especially for talent on set. You'd be a great producer. So yeah, ideally, like the shoots that I'm working on, we have full teams, they're fast paced, every minute is $500 that's being spent. So you have people who their entire job is to pace it and make sure that everyone feels okay, that you're getting what you need. You have PAs getting you water and snacks, and you have hair and makeup artists usually hovering on set, like ready to go in. But if you don't have that, if you're just doing a portrait shoot, like that's something that's on you. And that's really cool. Like that's the cool thing about like starting small and experimenting and like slowly just like working with friends and then like working with bigger teams, is because you're used to doing all of it yourself. So you know what their problems are on set. So you can kind of already anticipate what their day will be like. So you know when's a good time to ask them for something, when's a good time to not ask them for something, you know? Yeah.
If the client wanted more, how would you get more of a catchlight in her eyes?
If the client wanted more of a catchlight in her eyes right now. So we can bring down the beauty dish in height like that already. I'm gonna turn the model light on for a sec. Yeah, okay, can you face, is there? Hold on. I'm gonna put the grid back in this just so I'm not blinding her, but I'll show you. So you can lower it in height. You can bring a reflector back in here, just like a whiteboard even, just to like bump up a little bit. But yeah, really, I feel like that raccoon eye comment is probably the most common with like a beauty dish like this. One thing I do love to do on set that we just kind of don't have the space for today is I put a giant like scrim fabric, like a 10 by 10 or 12 by 12, even just up on C-stands. You don't need to build up the whole thing for it. That's crazy. But you just put it back here, and now that's just like an even, huge, sorry, I'm not in the frame for the video. We're good, okay. And now that's just like an even, huge light surface from here that just adds enough of a fill to help everything feel less like super highlighty or super dark, if that makes sense. But okay, so I put the grid back in this guy, and now I'm gonna put the model light on, which is another really great way to see what's happening before you shoot it, because I can see this light on her, so I can see, you guys can't see, and I'm sorry for that, but I can see what happens if I go down a bit. This light, yeah, the model light's super like dim
shades.
You're not going to see the model light from where you're sitting because that's what the grid's doing, is blocking it from going sideways.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. So yeah, so the model light's on. It's mainly just for me right now to be able to see how high we're positioning this. But now it'll show you guys. So now we've moved it down a bit. And you already have more light in her eyes. So you can keep fine tuning it that way too.
Are you bouncing those lights into the scrim or just another light into the scrim?
So when I do the scrim, I usually will bounce other lights into it. But say this is a white box. If you don't like what the lights are doing on the ceiling, turn them to the wall. See what happens. You maybe split the difference. Like so much of when I first started, I was in like the attic of like my home, which I just painted the whole thing white. It was kind of insane. I looked crazy. But I would just have the light bouncing off of every corner just to see. And that helps you start to visualize in the, like now I can visualize like when these go that way, I can see the light shift in my brain. But no, normally I would put at least one big light or two behind the scrim just to have that be like a huge white box that's just shooting this way.
If you don't have a white wall, sorry.
You're good.
If you don't have a white wall, giant umbrella with a sock on, it's the same thing. It's a scrim in front of it going into a white substrate, right? So a 5-foot umbrella, $30-$40 sometimes, and you got the same thing.
You could do that. Yeah, no, you're good. There's a lot of options. And I think that's definitely something that's really interesting now is I see a lot of older school photographers love their modifiers. They love their softboxes. But a lot of newer school photographers that I know refuse to use modifiers ever. They always just put up like this white translucent, what's the sheet of paper? It's like a roll of white paper you can get. Yeah, it's just like diffusion. It's like a roll of diffusion paper. You just put on a C-stand and like roll it out. It looks like parchment paper, like baking paper.
It's technically a diffusion gel. Like if you're looking for it, it's under gels. So
Yeah.
It's not a paper.
But a lot of people will just shoot with rolls of that because you do have a lot more control over like the hardness and the softness of the light. So if you have like a piece of paper here and the light's super close to it, it's gonna look a lot different than if the light's super far from it. So that's just really interesting. I've like been on set recently and people have been very like anti-modifier or very pro-modifier, but there's a lot of ways to do the same thing.
I think the anti-modifier thing comes from people thinking it'll look more organic when it's bouncing around instead of coming directly from one source. But this is all taste. It's not like right or wrong. It's just
Totally. Yeah, but that's on
Let's
set.
turn into a podcast.
Return to a podcast. Next demo day. Parchment paper. Yeah. Okay. You what? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hey.
The position of your key light, does it affect your, I guess, your final result?
Sorry. Does the position of my key light affect what?
Your final result. So do you ever move around your key light or it's always just set? And just dial in all your settings after?
I move everything around until I like get it to a point where I like, and even then I'll still move stuff around. I think, but if you like the position of it, I think once you find a light you like, you can kind of use that as like a priority and then fit every other light or whatever else you want around that. Like whatever your edit is, be like, oh, you really like this like front flashy light. Okay, maybe like chill on your edit a bit because it's gonna be really hot. Does that make sense?
Also, I wanted to ask, you said that it affects a lot of your settings. So let's just say you dial everything in, right? And you were to turn off your key light. Have you ever like done that where like, okay, I have all my settings dialed in, it looks great. I won't leave my key light on for this shot specifically. Has that ever happened at all? Or is it like based off of like taste or?
Yeah, so sometimes we'll like get everything set. I'll get my settings where I want them, and then I'll like, maybe a light will misfire or I forget to turn it on or something happens where I'm like, wait, I actually prefer it without that. Like that totally happens. And that's like another good moment where like be okay in that moment to pivot to that. Like it's happened a lot on set where we'll be like testing and the client will be like, wait, that's the one, but it's not the lighting direction that they initially gave me. So that's just that moment where you like give yourself time to breathe, give your client time to breathe, like people on set. Like don't try to like be super rigid, you know? You can. Some jobs are good for rigidness, but that's not my vibe. Yeah.
Would you say playing with light, like bouncing light around, will help you be more informed about how to use light better? Like just playing, bouncing light around, practicing using different lights?
Yeah, I think I got to where I am because I played with light and bounced it around a lot. And just like spending that time in the studio feeling like you're wasting time. But that builds your foundation, you know? 100%.
Are you doing a lot of your like lighting setups based off of direction on set, or are you planning a lot of it in pre-production with the client?
Are we planning a lot of the lighting on set or in pre-pro? So usually pre-pro's used for that to know what the lighting will be on set, because you need to provide a gear list to the studio. You have to know what you need. You have to know that some things will change on set and like be able to be flexible, kind of like we were just saying. But generally, the lighting direction and everything is already chosen and like locked in for each shot before you're on set. Because once you get in studio, that clock's ticking. That day is expensive for them. So there's not really time to be like maybe. And some clients do like to have that time built in. But you reach a certain caliber and they're not going to be tolerating that, you know?
Dealt with like a client changing their mind about lighting on set
Have I dealt
pre-planned?
have I dealt with a client changing their mind on lighting? Yes. There was a L'Oreal shoot. We set up this entire lighting and they're like, we don't like it. I was like, sick. It took us like half a day. But that's also a moment where you can talk through with the creative directors, like not like L'Oreal was a huge one. So you're talking through with a few people why you think this might work best for them still. And then it's kind of their job to resonate with the client, like the end client, and that's their decision. But yeah, there's times where you do it and they're like, I hate it. I'm like, okay. And you have to pivot, because you don't pivot? Okay, what? You're gonna die on that hill? You're not gonna get hired again. That's crazy. What was your question?
No, I was gonna ask you, if that beauty dish was closer, would it increase the contrast on the face?
Yeah, if the beauty
Or
dish is
follow?
Yeah, if the beauty dish is closer, it's definitely going to start getting more contrasted. I can show you it super quick, but the highlights are going to get hotter because the power is still pretty high, which you could turn down the power to compensate. But now also we're going to get a little bit more of that hooded look again. Sorry. That's crazy. Are you okay? You sure?
Yeah, it's
Cool.
not. It was in
It was not in? Sick. So sorry. That's what you have insurance.
it's not heavy.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Do you get the idea? That's crazy. Do you want to keep seeing it?
No, it's okay.
Okay, you get the vibe. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Any last questions? Yes.
I'm really interested in more dynamic lighting. Like, I've seen crazy stuff people do with like water behind the model, like it's raining and they shoot through the water, and like colors coming from different sides, and how to balance all that stuff. I like much more out there stylistic things. So what would be your best approach to that?
Best approach to more stylistic lighting.
Like
I think,
dramatic, dynamic, and outside of the box sort of stuff.
yeah, I think if you want more like dramatic and dynamic stuff, gels immediately, just putting a color on them, dealing with one color, maybe one normal like white light and one color, are gonna be really fun. And just a lot of like hard light sources. I feel like I see a lot of more dramatic lights like that. Introduce shadows is fun, interesting.
Yeah.
That's I think the biggest part for sure.
I saw one recently that you had a woman, she had like really dark on one side and light on the other on your website. It's like right in the middle. And I thought that was an interesting one to keep, because some people might say, oh, it's too dark on one side. But it's like your personal choice in that moment was that it looked very dynamic. And that's, I like that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely all comes down to just really how you feel in that moment. And sometimes the client will vibe with it, and sometimes they won't. And yeah, that image on my website I really love. So I'm gonna keep it in there. Thank you. What's up?
Did you get your first job through networking and recommendations, or did the client see your work firsthand?
Did I get my first jobs through networking? Yes. My entire career is built off of just meeting people and being nice. And people be like, oh, what's your strategy? What's your social strategy? What's your SEO strategy? I'm nice. And that's literally it, because that's who I want to work with, you know? Yeah. Also, wait, sorry, quick time check. Are we good to keep going on questions, or how you feel? We're going to start up. Okay, 3 more.
Because a lot of times when you're in the studio, sometimes you have to shoot like video B-roll and shoot. What would you recommend as far as a lighting that would complement video without ruining the initial lighting of your actual subject for the photography, as far as placement or any recommendations?
Heard. So the question was like, when you have to do like B-roll video and stuff, what's like a complimentary lighting?
Yes.
I don't shoot video at all, and I'm really proud of it. To be able to get this far without doing video is insane, but that's a question for Seth. Yeah. My favorite lighting modifier, a scrim, because you can do so many things with it. Like you can make it a hard light, you can shoot into it, it can be a fill, it can be so many things. So for sure a scrim. All right, last question.
Let's add one more light.
If I wanted to add another light to this setup, I would throw in, I love the kicker lights from behind. Usually I'll even do like 2 at the same time, which is insane. And no one will ever tell you to do that, but I love to do it. It makes it so where you could almost like reach out and just grab whatever's in that image, and like it just looks so like crunchy in 3D, which now AI is coming for me, but that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, anytime I can make things really just look textury, I love it. All right. I think we are all set and good. Thank you guys so much for being here and watching me drop stuff and, you know,